I need to know. It's okay. I want to know the truth, okay? I can tell you. Okay.
At this very time, a mother found out that her son was a wanted murderer who had killed Jonna Barry, who was 21 years old.
I noticed you finally had a knife. I kept stabbing and stabbing. I remember trying to defend myself like this with my hands, and that's where I got the cuts on my hands.
He stabbed her so many times. This wasn't a person who was just trying to get one stab in and run away and grab a car.
This was the most horrific thing I've seen. It's something that I'll never forget.
I've ruined so many people's lives.
Knox County 911.
Hey, yeah, why was remember at Cedar Bluff Road?
Mm-hmm.
There's a man that just walked in the store. He was heavily bloodied. Looks like he's been in a fight.
Does he need an ambulance?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Okay, can I talk to him, please?
Sure, he wants to talk.
All right, what's your name?
Jason Imami.
Jason?
Imami.
Now what happened?
I just felt somebody stab me right in my chest.
Somebody stabbed you?
Me in my face. And that's the first thing I did was get up and run. His roommate's still in there. Apparently somebody broke into his house.
Is his roommate okay?
He doesn't know. How is he okay? He was screaming very loud.
Now, where's your address at?
Redora Road.
Redora?
RHODORA.
RHO?
Park Apartment.
A store worker made this 911 call just minutes after Jason Imami, 22, ran off barefoot and bleeding. There was blood all over his clothes and on his face from being stabbed. His hands were also cut up. There was more to his call for help than just him. He said his friend was still inside with the attacker. Right away, the Knox County Sheriff's Department sent help and got to the apartment complex on Redora Drive.
When the call came out, we then went to the apartment complex to check on the girl and kind of see what we could find there.
Before we continue, don't forget to like this video. It really helps more people discover these important stories. If you enjoy true crime content, be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. I'd also love to know where you're watching from, so drop your city or country in the comments. Now, let's dive into the case. The cops went into the building and found Jonna Barry lying on her back near the front door. She was hurt over 25 times with stab cuts on her neck, chest, and arms. She was still living, but not very well.
She made some noises, but she never said anything. She never came out with any words. I'm thinking, how could one human being do this to another human being?
How much blood was in the building told its own story and made it clear how serious her situation was. As soon as the ambulance came, they carefully put her on the stretcher and rushed her to the hospital. Jason had also been stabbed, and he was taken to the hospital to get better. Jonna was taken away in a different vehicle, but she never got there. Jonna passed away in the ambulance's back seat, not far from the hospital. An autopsy was done on her body. Another 911 call came in before the cops got there. Someone was yelling and banging on the door of a neighbor's room. He believed someone might be trying to get in.
Knox County 911.
Yeah, I hear a lot of noise outside my apartment. There was a lot of banging on the door right downstairs. Now I hear some sort of yelling.
Mm-hmm.
Get someone out.
Do you see anybody outside?
I look out the people. Yep.
What's your name? Just hung up on me.
The police tried to get as much information from him as possible when they talked to him, but he didn't have much to say. He said he didn't see anything. Jonna had passed out just outside his flat, where he couldn't see her, near the bottom of the door.
It's hard to imagine that somebody couldn't hear somebody knocking on the door, but of course she's bleeding out, so I don't know how much she could really pound on somebody's door.
At the same time, a group of detectives was at the crime scene going through the flat one room at a time.
How bloody was this crime scene?
There was blood in not only in Jonna's bedroom, Jason's bedroom, blood in the living room, blood on the back door, blood out the back of the apartment going down the stairs. Looked like there had been some type of fight in Jonna's bedroom.
As the police went from room to room in the apartment following the blood trail, they began to figure out how horrible the night must have been. They found something else in the middle of everything.
Inside Jason Imami's bedroom, investigators recovered a piece of cardboard that had a partial shoe print on it.
The Atlanta Braves hat, the CD case, all of those things were leading us to believe that someone else possibly had entered the apartment, since these things did not belong to either one of the occupants of the apartment.
The murder weapon was discovered in the hallway directly outside of Jonna's bedroom. What stood out to me the most about the weapon is how damaged it was. The handle was broken, the blade was bent. I could only assume that it had hit bone, that it was used multiple times, that it was very violent just given the force to break the handle.
The knife and blood samples were carefully taken from the scene of the crime so that the police could look into them. A bloody print was also seen on a piece of cardboard that was sitting next to the door. The lab got the knife to test, and blood samples were also sent there. For some reason, though, the DNA findings were not ready on time. Now, everyone had to wait. After cleaning up the crime scene and gathering proof, the next step was to figure out what had been done to Jonna and Jason. It was the medical inspector who gave that answer when the autopsy results came in. But Jonna wasn't the only one hurt. The report also showed Jason's deep cuts, defensive marks, and other signs that he too had been violently attacked. He had fought to stay alive.
Jason Imami was just trying to survive, and I would think that most people would want to get away from whatever's happening to him. But we also wondered, why did the attacker let him get away? How did she not get away if he was able to get away? That raises a red flag, that Jason was able to get away. Plus, there was no forced entry into the apartment.
Since Jason was still in the hospital and couldn't tell the police what happened that night, they turned to Jonna's family. They were shocked by what they heard.
Jason was stabbed also, but Jonna's brothers and her dad wondered why Jason didn't help her.
His brother and father had a strong sense from the start that something wasn't right with Jonna. They didn't trust Jason because he had been in the flat where everything happened that night. They thought he would have kept her safe, or at least tried harder to save her. Detectives slowly began to see what the family was seeing.
I have a lot of suspicion about Jason Imami. In my mind, he's a suspect, and so we have to talk to him.
Another scary thing was that the killer hadn't brought the knife used to kill Jonna into the flat. It came from her own kitchen, inside the apartment.
We knew right away that the knife came from inside the home. It was part of a matching set that was from the kitchen.
That little detail changed the whole investigation's mood because it no longer looked like a random person had broken in. It looked like someone who was already there and knew their way around the room. They didn't need to break in because they were already there. Right then, Jason Imami stopped being just the roommate and became someone the police had to start looking at very, very carefully. The police were able to bring Jason in for an interview because his health had gotten better by this point. The first thing they asked him was about his connection with Jonna.
A couple things I wanted to go over with you about the two of you. So as far as you and Jonna are concerned, has there ever been chemistry between the two of you?
I've always thought of Jonna as a friend. I've never thought of dating her at all.
He said they were just living together.
How long have you known her?
I've known her for probably at least over 5 years.
Okay. Did you guys ever date?
No.
Never?
No. I was living in Knoxville and she needed a place to stay, so I said I'd be happy to let you live with me. That wouldn't be a problem.
The night of the crime, Jason told the police what had happened before it happened.
She probably went to sleep about 10:30. I probably went to sleep 12:30 around there.
What do you remember after that?
I just remember waking up, hearing screams. I looked at my alarm clock. I believe all I remember seeing a 4, so probably 4 a.m. sometime.
He quickly told her why it didn't seem strange at the time.
She told me when she first moved in, she said, if I wake up and I'm scared or something, just come in and check on me, make sure I'm okay.
When Jason went to check on Jonna, he saw a dark figure walking out of her bedroom. This made things very scary.
He's on top of me. I just remember fighting with him. He punched me in my face. I kept telling him, I was like, what do you want? He just kept telling me, shut up, shut up. And then I felt a sharp pain right here, and that's when I knew he had a knife.
Jason and the mystery suspect got into a fight that got violent.
As soon as I was able to do anything, he grabbed me and threw me down in my bed. And I was doing whatever I could to get out of the way of the knife. And there's one time I grabbed it and I felt this serrated part cut through my fingers. And next thing I know is I had a clear shot to my bedroom door and I just went as fast as I could.
He kept being questioned by police to try to figure out what really happened that night.
You ran out of the apartment. Did you take anything with you?
I didn't even think about it.
What were you wearing?
I was wearing blue workout shorts, which I wore to the gym, and a pair of boxers.
Okay.
And that's all I was wearing. I just ran straight out the door and right across the street. And I was banging on some of the doors at the other complex.
Finally, they asked the most important question. Jason had seen the person who killed Jonna up close. Could he remember how he looked?
Let's just go through what this guy looks like.
He's got short hair, kind of like mine. It's like a brownish.
Jason not only talked about the suspect, but he also decided to give more information for a combined sketch.
Tom's going to help you with the composite.
Police used Jason's statement to make a photorealistic computer composite of the suspect. The sketch got around a lot in the hopes that someone would know him. The cops still didn't believe Jason, though, because something about his story didn't seem right.
They weren't the kinds of wounds that Jonna had sustained, specifically a deep incised wound on his right ring finger. That was suspicious in nature.
Did he stab Jonna and his finger slide down the knife and cut his finger? Or was it an actual defensive wound that he sustained during the fight?
That was a problem for me in terms of...
The murder weapon was also taken from their house, which shows that Jason had access to it. Given this and other proof, the police chose to go back to the crime scene on December 9th with Jason to check his story.
It was locked. Jonna was sitting right here. My door was totally closed to my room. I woke up just from my sleep here, and I remember walking this way.
Jason's story at the crime scene matched what he had said earlier when he was being questioned.
I'm still looking down, and I remember doing this and having him face me and grab me like this. And then he pushed me back this way, and I fell on the bed like this. And that's at the point to where I noticed he finally had a knife. I remember trying to defend myself like this with my hands, and that's where I got the cuts on my hands.
And Jason described pushing them back towards the wall of the bedroom. That information was corroborated by blood smear on the drywall.
He then went on to give a full explanation of what happened.
As I ran through here and got the door open, I just ran. I didn't even stop in here. I ran down through here and down these stairs. And I saw a figure come from behind this little cabana here and kneel down in between one of these bushes here on the other side of the pool. And it was kind of like somebody going walking on the bed.
After that, Jason talked about how he got to the convenience shop.
I got behind the car, started yelling even more. They didn't even stop. I remember going just right next to these bushes. I remember yelling right about this point right here. And then when I got to the door here, I looked inside, noticed the clerk. I got to hear told him to get help.
Even though they weren't sure yet, the police were beginning to believe his story.
The walkthrough was he felt like he was being pursued, and you kind of started to understand how and why he made it all the way to the 24-hour convenience store.
As agents tried to figure out what Jason was saying, they got some information that they didn't expect.
We got a tip a few streets over from the apartment complex that an individual had been involved in some crimes, some thefts, and that led us to an individual named Michael Percival.
Michael lived not far away from Jonna's flat. The police went right to Michael's trailer to check it out. The first thing they saw there made them suspicious right away.
When we went into the trailer to talk to him, the carpet cleaner was sitting there next to the living room.
On its own, a carpet cleaner might not seem odd, but the fact that it was found in the home of a murder suspect raised red flags. It made the police wonder if it had been used to clean something much worse, maybe even blood. The police found Michael's shoes in the house and found something shocking.
She kind of elbowed me and showed me the tread, and we were both kind of like, holy cow, this could really be, the shoes.
I saw Captain Hall, and he said, "We've got him." He still had the shoes, Kevin. He still had the shoes.
The prints on the shoes' soles were the same as the prints found at the crime scene. This gave the police new hope that they might be getting closer to solving the case. Michael was questioned, and the shoes were sent to be looked at longer. Michael said something shocking during the questioning. He said he was just a spectator to the crime and not involved in it in any way.
When we start questioning him about the homicide, he says that he was involved in the homicide. He says that it was drug-related, that Jason Imami and Jonna had owed money to the drug dealer, and the drug dealer went over to collect the money, and the drug dealer went inside the apartment to collect drug money from them. Michael Percival stayed in the car. The drug dealer was in there for a long period of time, so Michael went in to see what was going on and walked in on the drug dealer stabbing Jonna and Jason.
The cops thought it looked good at first, but it would soon be a letdown.
But it turns out that the shoe was sent to the lab for the purposes of examination, and the wear patterns were completely inconsistent with the wear patterns of the shoe print that was recovered in Jason Imami's bedroom.
Investigators found out that Michael was seeking attention and had mental health problems, which is why he got involved with the police. That was all there was to it. The drug angel was also finally thrown out when it was proven that neither Jason nor Jonna had any drug-related connections.
There was nothing to indicate at all that Jason or Jonna were involved in drugs, so it was very inconsistent with what we...
There was no going back for the police, but Jonna's mother and other family members were doing everything they could to get peace.
I would leave Atlanta and I would drive to Knoxville on my days off work, and I would go around apartment complexes, parking lots, anywhere I could, and put flyers out about Jonna's murder and that it hadn't been solved.
Jonna Barry is calling us and every other TV station, blanketing the community, keeping the word out about her daughter, doing all she can.
Since the investigation had come to a halt, the cops turned their attention back to Jason. He agreed to go through a polygraph test when they asked him to. At first, he stayed cool and collected, answering questions correctly.
Do you know for sure who caused the death of Jonna Barry? No. Did you have prior knowledge that the person who stabbed Johnny would be at your apartment?
Everything changed when the polygraphers asked straight questions about the murder, though.
Jason, I want you to listen to me.
Yeah.
I think you're a smart boy, but you did a part on that test.
Did I really?
You really did.
Why do you think you failed the test? I don't know. I was one.
The police were not ready for how Jason would respond.
But I've been doing this for a long time, and there's something that you have not told me. Did you stab that girl?
No, I did not stab her at all.
Did you get just angry, perhaps, over something that she said or something that happened there?
Never.
And you just lashed out?
Never.
All I'm trying to determine is the truth.
And I'm getting
my point, Jason, that you haven't told the truth.
Where am I lying then? I have told you the 100% truth. Are you saying I did it?
I'm saying it certainly looks like it.
I don't have anything to do with it. I don't care what that box said. I voluntarily clicked it. If I had something to hide, why would I take this test? Why would I get DNA? Why would I do this?
Calm down.
I'm getting mad here. I ain't
You
getting
don't need to get
upset.
mad. Calm down.
I feel like a suspect
Calm
now.
down.
The detectives were shocked by what happened next. The polygraph test did not go well for Jason. Just when Jason's situation seemed hopeless, something happened that might prove his innocence or crime. The DNA test results for the murder weapon and blood from the scene of the crime were back.
We end up finding out that Jason Imami's DNA is there in the apartment, Jonna's DNA is there in the apartment, and then we have a third unknown. So we haven't.
This was huge news because it proved what Jason had said about there being someone else in the house that night. Even though the unknown DNA came from a man, the cops still thought Jason might be involved. They chose to look over the results of his polygraph again because the failed test was still fresh in their minds. This time, they found something shocking.
The polygrapher said that he failed the test. When we had 2 other polygraphers look at the results, they basically...
The cops had even less proof that Jason was responsible now. In the end, he was found not guilty when the shoe print and part of the fingerprint on the knife did not match him. Since there were no other possible suspects, the police ran the unknown DNA profile through the system, but did not find any hits. At this point, they had no more leads to follow, and the case seemed to be getting cold over time. The cops were having a hard time coming up with new ways to investigate, but Jonna's family was working hard to make things better. Jonna's parents were upset when the unknown profile didn't find any matches. Then they found out that people arrested for serious crimes in Tennessee did not have their DNA collected to be kept in the system. Soon, their pain became a reason to live.
And Mike had been lobbying the legislature for the Jonna Barry Act to change the DNA laws here in Tennessee, which would allow DNA profiles to be taken from people arrested for violent crimes. The Barrys were able to successfully...
The parents felt very good about this, but they were still not any closer to figuring out who killed their daughter. It was still unknown who killed Jonna in 2007, 3 years after the crime. Her family had been on TV, given a reward, and put up billboards and trucks across the country with a composite sketch of the suspect. There were many tips that the cops got, but none of them worked out. In April, when it looked like there was almost no hope left, the cops got a tip that could have made all the difference.
Someone's driving by, and he just happens to look up at the billboard with that composite sketch, and it rings a bell. It's somebody that looks familiar to him, and he calls the sheriff's office. The man said, "I know this person. He's actually a friend of mine. His name is Taylor Olson."
They had a name, but getting names before hadn't helped them do anything. When they looked into Taylor Lee Olson's background, they saw that he had only been charged with small crimes. But when they looked at him next to the combined sketch, it was clear that they were the same person. They also found out that he lived only 15 minutes from where the murder happened. The agents were starting to feel hopeful that they had finally found the bad guy. After that, they learned something that made them want to act.
He also had an outstanding warrant for his arrest out of another jurisdiction. We arrested him, asked him about the crime. He said knew nothing about it, remembered seeing something about it on the news back then, but nothing since then. He was asked to voluntarily submit a sample of his DNA, which he did, and then he was transported to...
As soon as they had his DNA, they sent it to be compared to the unknown sample from the crime scene. They wouldn't come back for a few months, but in September 2007, they did, and they were well worth the wait. It worked out great. The DNA match made the police sure they had caught the man. Now all that was left was to question Taylor and give him a chance to say why his DNA was found at the crime scene. But when he was brought in, the police made sure he didn't know he was being questioned about the murder of Jonna Barry. They thought this would help them get a confession.
Do you know why you're here?
Pretty much.
What for?
Guys accused me of breaking into his house and stealing a bunch of steel.
Had you ever heard about the Jonna Barry homicide case before?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd never seen Jonna Barry before?
Like, in person?
Yeah.
When the agents brought up Jonna, they thought it would surprise him. But Taylor acted calm and said he had never met her. So the cops chose to say something risky.
After I sent your sample off to the TBI lab, they got us a report back. It's a match for your DNA being in Jonna Barry's apartment.
Is this a joke?
No.
Like, I really don't know anything about it.
No, trust me, it's not a joke. Is there any reason that you can explain your blood being in Jonna Barry's apartment?
My blood was in Jonna Barry's apartment.
Right.
You're serious?
Yeah.
You think I killed someone?
I'm just talking about the evidence, is what I'm talking about.
I've never killed anyone.
So we're here to give you an opportunity.
Okay.
To, tell us what happened, why you were there,
Dude,
and why your blood was there.
I have never been there. I don't even know killer. I haven't killed no one. I've never killed anybody. Never.
We have your blood there.
So I'm pretty much, huh?
and giving you the opportunity to explain
I don't have an
what
explanation.
happened.
When Taylor heard about the DNA and started to understand how things really were, he looked very upset. He stuck to his story and claimed he didn't know anything in that first interview, though. He would be questioned by the police for 3 more days, though, and slowly cracks started to show in his armor. During the interrogations, Taylor came up with a new way to explain his DNA being there. He said he had no memory of the event at all.
Why don't you tell me what happened when you were inside?
I don't know.
You do know, Taylor.
Well, obviously, I killed some person.
How come?
I don't know.
Were they awake?
I don't know. I don't have a clue. I don't remember. I don't know.
In the end, the cops had enough after 3 days of this. They chose to put a lot of pressure on him to see if he would break.
Taylor, I've been sitting out here in the hallway listening to this you're talking about, and I'm just about sick of it. You know what happened to this girl. Look at this. You were there. You know what happened to her. We know you were there. The evidence shows you were there. Why did you do this to this girl? Huh? Oh my God. Why'd you do that?
Seeing the pictures of the crime scene worked. It was too horrible for Taylor to face what he had done. He finally broke down and started to talk about what happened the night of the murder.
Me and Noah went out and jacked a CD player out of a car, and we kind of got lost from each other. And someone came out when we were breaking into cars and yelled at us, ran off.
When he talked about his friend Noah Cox, the officers paid attention. They thought Taylor might be trying to put the blame on someone else, but it didn't look like that was the case. He would then talk about how he got into the room.
How'd you get into the apartment? Just checking doors? You found that door open?
Yeah. I was just looking for a set of keys with, a little alarm thing on them so I could just beep, beep, find the car, go home.
And then what?
I went in the bedroom and someone said, "Who are you?" or "What are you doing?" or something. And I was like, chill out. And then I just heard like a yell.
But what he said next would show how horrible things really were that night.
Just felt the pain.
Where'd you feel the pain at? Right there? Then what happened?
I freaked out. And I don't know. And I can't believe this happened.
You got the knife away from that person and just went kind of crazy?
Yeah. I guess they were sleeping with it. I just freaked out. And I ran.
Taylor said that Jonna had tried to stab him, and he had fought back in a furious rage. He still didn't say anything about Jason, though. They would be shocked by what he said next.
I didn't even remember anything about the guy until the news said it was 2 people. I didn't realize everyone got hurt like that.
Did you just go in there and things just went wrong?
I really don't know her, man. I've never met her.
Now it was clear that the murder wasn't planned and came about during a robbery that went violent. They finally told the truth after 3 long, hard days of questioning. The police gave Taylor a chance to tell his family the truth before they charged him.
Would you rather talk to your mom on the telephone, or would you rather talk to her in person?
I'd like to see her.
His mother and sister would go into the questioning room a few hours later, but they had no idea the heartbreak that was in store for them.
What happened, Tay? The truth, Taylor, I love you.
It was an accident. Yeah, sure.
Are you sure, Taylor? Taylor, I need to know. It's okay. I want to know the truth, okay?
I can tell you.
Okay.
When Taylor's mother found out that her son was wanted for murder, she looked very upset. At first, it looked like she was trying to find a way to prove it wrong.
When did you tell him the truth? How did that come about?
Because my blood's on the knife. And my blood's like in
Then
the
why did
back
they
door.
let you go? Did they get the DNA back? Okay, and it matches?
Taylor, okay. Listen, I'm going to help you. I want to make sure that this is for real and that you did it. No, I don't know.
But as she learned the truth, her sadness became clear, and she tried to send her son a word of hope.
Taylor, I want you to know something. I want you to start praying because there is a God. Do you hear me?
And He loves you and will forgive if this is true. I'm so sorry, Mom.
Taylor.
He was arrested for killing Jonna Barry and attacking Jason Imami after telling his family the truth. While he was being taken away, he was questioned by the press, and his answer made it clear what was really going on.
Did you mean to kill her? Why did you do it? Was it an accident? But you stabbed her 26 times.
Taylor was caught and was being held in jail until his trial. This seemed to be the end of the case that Jonna's friends and family had been waiting for. But then, not long before the trial began, Taylor did something that changed everyone's lives.
I received a phone call from Brad, the detective. Jonna, he said Taylor also committed suicide last night. He hung himself in his jail cell.
However, in his last note, Taylor tried to say that he wasn't guilty and that the police should blame someone they knew. In his note, he said that Noah Cox, the friend with whom he had been trying to steal a car the night of the murder, was to blame. When the police looked into Noah, he voluntarily gave them a DNA sample, but they couldn't find any proof that linked him to the murder. All suspicions were taken away from him, and that was the end of the case. Taylor's way of killing Jonna was all her family needed to know to decide if he was guilty or not.
I read a bunch of letters said I didn't do it and hung himself. That's a coward's admission of guilt.
Thanks for watching. If this case impacted you, please give the video a like, subscribe for more true crime content, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.